All right, try it again. So, hey, this is a comment response video for episode 135, my experience with the devil. No, really, I'm going to talk about religion, and I'm going to read some comments from the comment section. I'm going to try and follow up my videos in that way. This person here in the back, this is Harris. Harris gives me criticism quite frequently. Harris, what was your criticism of my video?
I didn't like the lighting.
So Harris hates the lighting on my videos. And so this whole thing, I can turn this shit off. I can turn it off, right? I can turn it off and be in the dark, or I can not use that light in general. But so I did manipulate the lighting a bit. He thinks that it's far too blown out. The second comment that dealt with the video was Jesuit education comes in handy. Now, this viewer obviously knows that I went to a Jesuit high school. Jesuits are an order of Catholic priests. It's part of Catholicism. I'm going to talk about religion, some religion in this comment response. So if that's not your kind of thing, you might want to turn off and not watch this video. But so Catholicism has come under attack for quite good reasons in the last 30 years due to their inability to deal with issues of pedophilia in a forthright and non-hypocritical way. It's one of the things that really kind of made me reevaluate my relationship to the Catholic Church. But that was not my experience in high school. My experience in high school at that institution was incredibly positive. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not a skeptic, and it doesn't mean I'm not critical, but Jesuit education comes in handy. What are the main things that I gleaned from that? The main things that I think that I gleaned from that education was that nihilism, which is the ethos of our age, can be chided away, can be chased away through our responsibility to others. That meaning in life comes in our responsibility to others, and my responsibility to this person here, my responsibility to my lovely and talented partner and wife, Darlene, to the rest of my children, to my graduate students, and to my larger community. I think that's the primary message. But maybe more interestingly, the Jesuits are the intellectual mercenaries of the Catholic Church, both for better or worse with, mercenary. But the point being that one of the major lessons that I gleaned from that, or one of the things that I extrapolated from that, was the idea that if there is in fact a transcendent and benevolent, all-powerful creator of the universe, and in fact they're omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, they are not in fact intimidated by human intellect. The ramifications of that are that we are to ask, that the human being is called on to leverage their intellect, to ask as penetrating a question about the nature of our reality as possible. And that if the answers that arise lead you away from a belief in God or a benevolent, transcendent, all-powerful creator of the universe, then so be it. The Jesuits would believe that won't happen, that there is a thing called truth, so I think that's one of the major lessons that the two major lessons that I've extrapolated from Jesuit education is that meaning, and that I have a deep responsibility to others, and that meaning springs from that. And the other thing is simply that you don't have to have an anti-intellectual position towards religion and spirituality. Quite the contrary. At Pack 5385 said, "Wait, Elliot," in relationship to the latest episode. This is like dropping a bomb on us. Please, I have to know how you reflected on this. What was your gut feeling that followed immediately after? Fear, confusion, revelation? How do you interpret this experience on art, but also on yourself? I don't know that I can simply pass this off as a kind of Freudian subconscious explanation. That seems too simple. There has to be more nuance to this. Anyway. So this was my hallucination or my encounter with the devil, and really I'm not answering the question directly, but it really calls to mind the New Atheism movement, and I mean my reflection on this experience really calls to mind again the New Atheism movement, Stephen Fry, and particularly Stephen Fry. Now, warning, my opinion follows, which is that a couple years ago I went with my kids, with one of these guys, to Six Flags amusement park, which is on the shores, I think, of Toledo or Cleveland, Cedar Point, Six Flags, Cedar Point. And there is this insane roller coaster there, right? And the roller coaster is basically a long set of cars that start off horizontally, on the ground, and they accelerate at an extremely rapid pace, 120, 150 miles an hour. And then they head up into a loop, they descend down in the loop, and then they continue along the ground. The entire ride probably lasts a minute, 2 minutes. I don't know what the height of the ride is. Again, it's the car takes off screaming, goes up in the air, loops almost perpendicular and back down again. The ride's 500 feet tall, 1,000 feet tall. I don't know what the actual height is. But the point is that when you're on the ground, I'm looking at that, and every fiber of my being is screaming, "Do not ride. Don't go on this ride." So, it's my belief that scientific proof of a transcendent creator, of a God, the God is beyond both names and forms, and that it is impossible, that the system is constructed specifically to make God impossible to pinpoint, to determine conclusively. And there is a reason for that. God's hiding in plain sight, and it takes anyone but an idiot, I think. You can be highly, highly intelligent and still be stupid. And so, what is Six Flags? What does this roller coaster have to do with that? Well, imagine a scenario where you knew, that many of the major religions, not all of them, but many of the major religions postulate a kind of eternal life or heaven or a better place. If you knew conclusively that there was in fact a better place, then there would be no stakes. In terms of narrative, storytelling is predicated upon the idea of stakes. Something valuable has to be in the balance of a story in order for that story to have meaning. So it seems to me that our entire existence is based upon the idea of stakes. If I became depressed and I knew unequivocally that either I would be reborn or that I would go on to eternal life, or if paradise awaited, why would I suffer through the indignities of life? So it is through the contrast of light and dark and good and bad that we can experience the full scope of life. Terror, joy, elation, jubilation, confusion, depression. It's only in those polarities that we can understand the full scope of human experience. And so in response to ATPAC 5385's question, this experience that is highlighted in my experience with the devil, really episode 135, weirdly enough, it made me reflect upon the idea that that human life is filled inherently with something called stakes, and that God itself is hiding in plain sight and doing that intentionally. At Dobbybog, D-O-B-B-Y-B-O-G-G, says, after your experience, what do you think of the devil's relationship is with art? There seems to be a never-ending debate about art being inspired by the devil as a way to degrade mankind. Do you agree with some of these critiques? Or what do you believe the devil's role in your art, or did it have anything to do with your art? Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, it overlaps with the last answer that I made, which is I'm unclear on the personification. This idea of theism versus deism. Is I think that the source of all life is beyond human understanding, stands outside of the field of causality, and is beyond both names and forms. So the personification, the personhood of a devil or evil, and the personhood of God is, I think, a human construction. And so when I think about what's the role of evil or the devil with regard to productive artistic construction. I think more in terms of kind of Jungian shadow and the idea that there are repressed components of our psyche that are animalistic in nature in a way, and that some of them have bad intent, or for lack of a better word. And I think that art in general in the artistic process can be a really powerful way of exploring those ideas in a kind of, for lack of a better word, a kind of safe space or safe way. So what we're doing as designers or artists primarily is establishing a kind of theoretical test bed for our ideas. It's my belief that in that environment, we can experiment with ethics. We can experiment with what we think is right or wrong. So as an example, Harris is painting this painting right now. It's my belief that whatever he does inside of this rectangular space is okay. He can represent heretical ideas. He can represent, he can play with ideas that he would not want to play with in real life. So I'm not so sure if I'm answering the question directly, but thanks for the question. At Lotus Eater 7247, it says, I found many issues with the statement, and I wonder if this is because of the admissions process. So this is referring to, this comment is in reference to my episode on how art school, that AI is in the process, Midjourney and AI tools are in the process of creating a kind of almost meltdown within art school admissions. And it's clear to see that this is going to happen. So at Lotus Eater 7247 said, I found many issues with this statement and wonder if this is because the admissions process in the US is very different to here in the UK. In the UK, you won't simply get into art school because your compositions are quote unquote sound, or you have shown an understanding of tone, etc. At least not in my experience. You need to actually explain your decision-making process in the interview and at least have some level of intent being shown. You could probably use it for admissions into a digital art or design course, but even then, it will be plainly obvious that you are using AI, and you would still need to explain the images to show experimental and process-driven ideas, including materials, is key, both of which AI art has zero evidence of. If you discount the process of prompting, which I call it, not just me, but which may be arguable, but nonetheless is not a visual process. In addition, at the moment, ChatGPT and those software which can write an essay are pretty garbage. They use fake sources and do not contain citations, for example. This would not fly at all. Now, you could probably use it to write a description of your work and your intentions, and this may well fool them, but you'd still need to pad it out and add more to it. I should know because I tried to get it to suggest projects, and its results were highly disappointing and unoriginal. So the admissions process in the US and in the UK may in fact be different. I run a grad program, so this interview process, I'm largely referring to the undergraduate admissions process, and I don't have a seat at the table with regard to that. So many of the issues that at Lotus Eater 7247 is raising, they play out in the interview process here in my studio, that's for sure. But when you're running a large undergraduate art school, to the best of my knowledge, most of those programs, I just had 2 children apply to major art schools. I'm trying to think if there was no interview process in either of these 2 prestigious programs that they applied to. I'm going to leave the names of those programs out because I think they're excellent programs. You had an essay process. You had to write an essay and you had to submit a portfolio. For one of them, my daughter is in a drama program. So there was in fact an audition. You can't fake that with AI, but there was no interview process. And in the visual art program, there was no interview. Now, so, when you're processing 150, 200, 300 applications for a program, are they going to interview all 300 students? And if we look at Midjourney specifically, I think that the data set that Midjourney is mining it does produce sophisticated compositional results, better than what you would find in a high school. Now, you can disagree with this, but take a look at this U.S. national competition called Scholastic. Much of the Midjourney work you can tell is AI, But in terms of composition, in terms of color balance, and basically all the foundational components that you would find in a foundation studies program in most major art programs, Midjourney creates work that's more sophisticated than most 15, 16, and 17-year-olds make. Feel free to disagree with that, but I still think it poses a serious problem. I have a friend who is head of a really well-respected, extremely well-respected undergraduate program in the United States here, and he mentioned that they're considering going back to having people submit actual physical sketchbooks and portfolios as a part of the process. At Tommy Like Tom has a comment that I'm physically in pain listening to you. It's like a story that never begins. Why don't people know how to tell a basic story? I came here for some dirt on that bad comedian, and you're talking about design school or something. So this is in reference to my Sam Hyde video. So I made a video on how Sam Hyde applied in 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. Sam Hyde applied to grad school, and I made a video on that. I told the story of his application process, and this guy says I'm physically in pain listening to you. I totally agree with that. I don't think that that's completely valid. I'm not saying that I'm the world's greatest storyteller. Sometimes I feel very frustrated with my ability to communicate. So how about this? At Tommy Like Tom, here's the story in a nutshell. Sam Hyde graduated from art school. He applied to grad school. He came here and applied. It was a weird interview. He didn't end up coming to school here. I don't know how compelling that story is. That's the story. At Redder Too Critical, this comment is in reference to my future comedy episode. He says, ironically, this uses the very gamer aesthetic you criticize Sam Hyde for, but done 5 years later. Well, I would agree with that, but I think it's a misunderstanding. So in my message to the Lost Boys, which was a Sam Hyde, was a follow-up to the Sam Hyde video, and I should have done a comment response video for the Sam Hyde video because, man, I got fucking torched in the Sam Hyde for good reason. I can see the merit and the value of many of the comments that I received. You all right? Many of the comments I received in that video, but at Redder Too Critical, ironically uses the very gamer aesthetic you criticize Sam Hyde for, but done 5 years later. Well, yeah, that's true. But I wasn't criticizing Sam Hyde for criticizing Sam Hyde for a gamer aesthetic. I'm militantly anti-gamer culture. And, feel free to it's only my opinion. It's totally fine if you disagree. If you're a gamer, it's like whatever. I genuinely think that the overwhelming majority of gaming, of video games, both casual as well as whatever, not only are they a waste of time, not only are they a complete waste of time, but they have a net negative psychological effect on the individual by decentering them, by literally decentering them, by creating an avatar in most instances that decenters the human. And so my fundamental issue is not with the aesthetic. It was never with the aesthetic. My fundamental issue is the fact that my computer screen, is a game, is a computer game in a way. If I mash the buttons in the proper way, money spits out of my real money, not fake money, not Candy Crush dollars or whatever the fuck. I don't know what the right terms are. I don't do any of that shit. But it's a complete and total waste of time. And not to mention the fact, I could go on forever. Not to mention the fact that again, I think that it has a profound and negative effect on the psyche of people who are exposed to gaming. And it's only my opinion. Not saying that I'm not saying that you have to agree with that. At Unapiel. Unapiel says, could you explain number 4? Structure your essay for scanning. Evaluate your essay for polysyllabic reference. What do you mean with scanning? Or what is polysyllabic relevance? Maybe it's because these concepts are so alien to me, but I did not completely understand. But I did grasp that first concentrate in creative writing, then tune the essay for a more technical and sophisticated writing. Okay, so this is in reference to my tips on how to apply to grad school, and particularly this refers to how to write an essay for any kind of grad program. And it says, quote unquote, structure your essay for scanning, evaluate your essay for polysyllabic relevance. So a lot of really good graduate programs get a high number of applications. And, you know, from my personal experience, what you do is you go through, you do a cursory pass. The people that are evaluating the materials, they read the essay. They read the essay extremely quickly, you know, so what they're doing is they're scanning the essay. If you're good at reading, I think if you have any experience with reading nonfiction at all, one of the ways to do that is to simply avoid reading anything that is not polysyllabic, anything that is not a large word. So as your eye traces down an essay, basically, if your eye skips back and forth to the larger, literally the larger words, the words with the most syllables, you can get a pretty clear understanding of what the content of the essay is. Then at that point, what you do is you loop back, you put those off into a pile, and you loop back to the essay looking for to the essays and read them more carefully. Now, that does not mean that essays, I don't think Charles Bukowski, as an example, uses a lot of extremely long words. But you can still, even in that context, you're trying to avoid reading. You're still looking for the kind of condensed language of the essay. So my advice would be to make sure that you evaluate your essay based on polysyllabic relevance, looking literally highlighting how condensed that language is. So this is a first attempt at doing comment response videos. I'm going to keep it short, but I plan on doing this. I hope to do this after every video. I know I mixed some comments from different videos here. Hopefully this helps. Consider subscribing, and see you soon.